Hello and welcome back. MC1 Gamer here, bringing you another Unlocking Age of Sigmar. So, today we're going to be looking at the Nighthaunt subfaction. This is a pretty exciting one. We've seen this at various tournaments. One performed pretty well at Adepticon this year with just tons of spirit hosts, double Mourngul. It doesn't seem like it's got a great variety in the subfaction. There's certainly it needs help. This is pre-General's Handbook 2017, but there are things that really surprise you about Nighthaunt if you focus on it. And now that they have an Allegiance set, they've definitely improved. I think there's a wealth of improvement that makes it a viable subfaction and pretty competitive. It's still got some loose things that need to be fixed, and that's what was wonderful about the ally system. With the new General's Handbook, it allows you with all these subfactions across all the Grand Alliances, the ability to kind of plug the holes where there might be some deficiencies. Nighthaunt has some really great things going for it. Again, it might not seem very exciting because it doesn't have a great variety of leaders. The leaders are pretty crunchy, so you're really kind of bringing in multiples of them to kind of make up for that fact. The Mourngul, which was the staple of this army before, has kind of been nerfed a little bit, which I think was a little excessive, but not terribly so. I just think it's a little bit much for the points that the cost. I would have been fine with them reducing the effectiveness of it if they dropped the points a little bit too, because I don't think it's really worth 400 points right now, but I think it's really good to include even if you're overspending because of all the other things that you're getting from Nighthaunt. So we're going to take a look at this. First, I'm going to have a couple of vanity pictures here. You know, I've as part of my Grand Alliance Death Army, and a part of my effort to paint up basically undead Bretonnians as the core theme, I've done a lot of converting and a lot of painting of ethereal units within the Grand Alliance Death. And you can see a picture here on my cover sheet. And I've included them, and I've used them to great effect, but I've seen people even do better. Like when, again, at Adepticon, one of these guys was asking me before he went, what do you think about this list? And he went with a double Mourngul list, and I told him, get rid of one of those Mournguls and just add more spirit hosts, maybe some more, Cairn Wraiths or Banshees. Volume with these guys, because they will surprise people at how their resilience and what they can kick out in damage, because you really have to dig deep into what they do beyond just what their profile is. So we'll get to that. But within my effort over the course of several years now to build out this army with this particular theme, I've learned a lot about how to use them and have kind of built in my own way some combinations. Now that's going to be very exciting with the new book, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people exploring this army. It's been featured on the Twitch, the Warhammer Twitch, which I highly recommend people check out and subscribe to, so you can see some of the back ones, and they did pretty well. So, just to go and show maybe a couple of things that I've got here before I get into the rules. Here's my Hex Wraiths. These are just basically Bretonnian questing knights that succumb to Nagash, I put a lot of time into these. I have 2 different sets of them. So I have 10 total. I'm probably going to make another 5 just so I can set a set of 3. Because what's exciting about these guys now, we're going to go into this when we look at the War Scroll, is that they're now Battle Line If, which means that if you're all Nighthaunt Allegiant, they're now a battle line option, and that is great. Now here's the big boy. We're going to go back to him. I'm going to go and move to these guys. I have my own version of Spirit Host because, again, I'm trying to fit a theme here as opposed to just using the default Spirit Hosts that are that come out of the box, which are very cool, but a little difficult to put together. I wanted something that kind of illustrated the undead Bretonnians. So I've got some of the dead soldiers from the Lord of the Rings line. And I mashed up some of my own with some bits from not only the Bretonnian Knights of the Realm, but also with either Black Knights, or in this case here, this is bits from the Mortis Engine Cairn Wraith kit that I kind of hacked up and just made, because they have ethereal pieces all strapped around them, all wisping around them, so that really makes them look that way. These pictures are unfortunately just a little bit saturated. They're a little bit overly bright. And I've got about 9 of these, and I'm probably going to make another, 15. So, and I've got all the bits, and they're all like in various different stages, but I think I have 9 that are ready to hit the table. But I definitely see the need for having more of these for summoning capabilities, but also for the battle line and whatnot. So here's the big boy. This is my Cairn Wraith. I did not dehorse him. I know it's a popular thing to dehorse right now, but I only have the one. I mean, I had a second one, but I got rid of it. I don't really think that there's a need for a second one. I like the Mourngul. I think that people have it's gotten a bad rap. I think it's mostly because people haven't figured out how to deal with it. And in the previous edition, it was mostly either you got to focus everything on it or you got to ignore it and kill everything else. But it's one of those I guess I should say one of those hard to deal with type of models that can affect a localized area, but it does not have battlefield effect. The best of its effect is really 6 inches that incurs a -1 to hit penalty on its enemy, and it used to do better than that. If you had a really bad bravery in a unit, it could be even as bad as -2. And with other stackings, it could be really, really harsh and not a whole lot of fun, making it so that it's impossible for you to hit. Or impeding your hit to the point where it just you're gonna have to roll mega amounts of dice to kill this thing. Plus, it had some good layered defenses. But you're paying a big premium for it, 400 points. Now, this has been neutered a little bit. Again, I don't mind that it's been reduced a little bit. It's a little easier to deal with. It doesn't have as many different situational effects. But I think that the 400 points is a little excessive. I think at the power level it's at right now, given the nerf, it probably should have been dropped anywhere from 20 to 50 points, just to be realistic with what it really can do. Because I think it was a lot of the hype and a lot of the feedback and a lot of the whining. And I always look, this may not be a popular thing, but then again, I speak my mind. I think a lot of people whine about stuff when they face it, but they don't seem to whine about it when they have their own tough stuff on the board. When they have their own crazy shit kicker combinations, they don't whine about that. They don't whine about 120 bloodletters kicking out mortal wounds on a 4+. They don't whine about if they've got a unit of blood of Nurgle set that provides 3 layers of ward type defenses as well as minuses to hit. No, you're not whining about that. Not to say that those people are the ones whining about this, but the Mourngul get a bad rep because it's that one model that some people just don't figure out. And then you get those loudmouth whiners that rage and freak out about it. And I think that's what ultimately led to the nerf. Again, I think it was very powerful, but I don't think it's any more 400 points powerful. I think that 400 points is really good at where it was. Now it probably needs to be adjusted, but who knows? Maybe we'll see that for the next cycle next year. I still think this is worthy of including because it still does some good stuff, but it's a big point sink to deal with. And you need monsters on the table. And Nighthaunt, again, it doesn't have a variety that you can just in its core right now to deal with a lot of other issues. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to take a look at Allegiance really before I get into the lists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what's new with the Nighthaunt and what really makes them interesting, because you can make a really diverse army that focuses on Nighthaunt. It's almost always been an element of my Grand Alliance Death army, just fulfilling a variety of roles that with more flexibility when you're dealing with the Grand Alliance Death. But now that we have a Legion set for this as a sub-faction and the ability to ally with a great deal of what's in the Grand Alliance Death, we get a lot of big bonuses that really give it a flavor that is just perfect for the Nighthaunt. It's not perfect in that it does have some weaknesses, but it's perfect in terms of the fluffiness, in terms of the narrative, in terms of it fits what you would think of an ethereal army. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Excuse me. So this is the Nighthaunt Allegiance abilities. I'm going to go zoom in. They have a basic Deathless Spirits trait, which is really just renaming the generic Grand Alliance battle trait. You see this duplicated across the others, the other sub-faction allegiances, that like Soulblight and Flesh Eater Courts. Now the range is a little bit shorter. It is a range of only 6 inches as opposed to, I think, before 10. 10 or 12, I'm not sure if I remember correctly. I think it was 10. But that's okay, because this is an army that really requires more leaders. Now, I've heard talk on other channels about, people who are either throwbacks to old tournament style from Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition who say, oh, I don't like having so many leaders in the game. I don't like focusing on leaders. I don't like having these big, giant, named characters. You know what? You just need to figure out that this is Age of Sigmar. It's not Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. This is a different game. And having multiple leaders sometimes is a reason. There are missions that specifically encourage you to have leaders. But there's missions that encourage you to have larger quantities of troops, or even monsters now with the new book. There's a mission that specifically deals with behemoths. So you need a spread, a range of different things on the table to compete. But this is an army that really cries for having multiples of the leaders. So with that in mind, you're going to have some deficiencies. You're going to have to pull points from other places. But the good thing is that they're kind of cheap. They're not that great. They're pretty crunchy. They're like 4 wounds a pop for the most part, unless you take the Black Coach. We'll talk about the Black Coach in a little bit because that's a kind of a polarizing thing as well. But the idea is that the nature of this entire army is that everything ignores rend. So you really got to hit them with a lot of attacks to do some damage, because you're not going to rend their basic save off, or you got to bypass it with, say, mortal wounds. And there's plenty of that stuff in the game. You sit on a cover, you can improve those. Those are really great things. But the idea here that you need a shorter range to have leaders means that you need to take more leaders with the Night Haunt. Great thing is that they may not even, none of them are going to be standouts, but you're going to have 4 or 6 of them. And you should try to max out it, or get close to max as much as possible, because individually they do some pretty good things, but they're going to spread that ability to get that 6-up save. Now that 6-up save is not crazy, but when you consider that one of the things that really melt these units is mortal wounds and volumes of attacks, any other save is going to be good. That's going to help you. You can't improve that now, unfortunately, with the new General's Handbook. You can't get it to a 5-up. That's really unfortunate. I think that was also a mistake. But hey, I don't write the game, and you know what? We're just going to have to deal with it and move on. That's the way it is. They make these changes, and you have to adapt and move on. So we will, because what we lost, guess what? We gained a lot of things too, and that is this thing here. This is a blanket ability for this sub-faction called Ethereal Rulers, and I love it. Here it is. It's not perfect again. It has an Achilles heel, but it is a great flavor for this army. I'll read it. Cairn Wraiths and Banshees are rulers of the Night Haunt realms and are capable of calling their spirit brethren to the battlefield. Instead of setting up Night Haunt units on the battlefield, you can place it to one side and say that it is in the underworld. If you do so, you can roll on the table below for the unit at the start of any of your movement phases, as long as there is one friendly Cairn Wraith or Tomb Banshee somewhere on the battlefield. That last sentence is important. This is another one of the reasons why you need to get as many of these leaders on the battlefield. They're only 60 or 80 points a pop, but you need to have as many as possible. Why? Because they're not that resilient. They're not even 5 wounds like the standard models, the standard hero level. Typically, again, 5 wounds to begin with. These guys roll 4. They have an unrendable save, which is usually only 4+. Again, you throw them on cover, they're going to be a 3+. But still, enough shots get through, and if you fail enough of them, it's not that hard to remove them off the battlefield. So you need redundancies. And you need to try to hide these guys. Fortunately, they're really small, so you can hide them. As long as there's some good, decent enough terrain on the battlefield, throw them in a building, throw them behind a tree. Behind a tree may not work very much because it's true line of sight, but throw them behind a wall. You've got to get these guys hidden if you plan on taking advantage of this, because if you lose them all, guess what? All that stuff is off the battlefield, and it's not coming on. And that is one of the Achilles heels I think that they missed with this. I think that they should have had a rider ability added on to this that said, should you have no leaders, maybe it comes on a board edge. Maybe you can roll you have to roll on the chart still, but it only comes on your board edge, or you can come on any board edge no closer than 9 inches away. Give an opportunity not to lose those points, because it's very similar to the thing where if you have reinforcement points, but you don't lose all your casters, you're SOL. You shit out of luck. Now, with that in mind, yeah, it's a lot of effort for your enemy to focus fire on all that stuff, because if they're focusing on that, they're not focusing on whatever else you have in the battlefield. Sure, I get that argument, but we all know how alpha striking works in this game and how really, really good shooting can be, and even indirect fire is a thing with a lot of artillery pieces. So it's out there between the long distances with magic spells and whatnot. You have to. It's something to be concerned about. It is an Achilles heel, and I don't like the idea of maybe taking like 500 or 1,000 points of your army, sticking it in the underworld, and then all of a sudden, turn 1, all of your Banshees and Cairn Wraiths have died, and now you basically lost the game. It's a really big risk, but it's got a high reward. Why? Because this means that you can deploy these guys. You don't need spellcasters to summon. Okay, you're not worried about reinforcement points here. You are able to put these guys down anywhere on the battlefield now. and that's phenomenal. Okay, so instead you can place it to one side. If you do so, roll on the table, and you start in the movement phase. As long as there is a Cairn Wraith, let's hear what the limitations are. Here we go. Well, it doesn't look like there's a limitation. I'm going to read this one. Well, yeah, the limitations are in the roll results. So I thought there were. I just was looking for exactly where on the page it was. So when you bring these guys in your movement phase, you're rolling a die 6 for each one. On a 1 and 2, it's a failure. You don't lose the unit, but it doesn't come in. So it's a risk. You have 33% chance that you're not going to be able to get these guys deployed instantly. Okay. That's we've seen that with other mechanics like this. It's totally worthy to have this be a risk situation. That's why we play the game. If you don't roll dice, that's why we roll the dice, to see what kind of random, crazy, wacky stuff can happen. But if on a 3 to 6 they're called forth, I would love it if they've had a thing where on a 6 they could still get to charge, or still get to do regular move, kind of like the Sylvaneth have when they move through the Spirit Ways and with their forests. But we didn't get that. Okay, I can live with it. We don't want to keep making these rules completely exact to the other armies. We want to have their own flavor. But if they're called forth on a 3 to 6, you send them up anywhere. Set them up anywhere on the battlefield within 9 inches, no closer than 9 inches from enemy units. This is really similar to summoning. So this is our own mechanic on summoning, and it really is very cool because there aren't any wizards. There aren't any inherent wizards in Nighthaunt. And that's also unfortunate. I wish that we could see some more special characters or even other new War Scrolls. Maybe we'll be seeing that next year. We've already seen a Nighthaunt specific leader type that I think it was the Nagash's Herald or something like that we saw at Nova that was revealed. It appears that we're going to be seeing a plethora of death stuff next year, which is great, and I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see more reveals. But until then, we've got our Cairn Wraiths and our Banshees, and that's it. But bringing these guys onto the table without having to worry about wizards, without having to worry about reinforcement points, here's a mechanic that allows us to do that. And although there's a random roll, okay, it can't be dispelled. It can't be stopped. And that is a big thing. So you can bring these guys in, and if they have you could even bring in more Banshees and Cairn Wraiths. You can hold some of those guys back too. Maybe you want to hold 1 or 2 of them back. Maybe you want to hold a couple of Banshees back, because if you summon them within 9 inches, guess what they can do? They can scream. It's not the greatest scream because it's a bravery test, but you know what? Against some armies, it can do pretty good damage because it does mortal wounds. So we're going to take a look at that in a second. Okay, next up, we have our command traits. Before we talk about that, let's talk about this thing here, Conduits of Ethereal Power. Black Coaches in a Nighthaunt army can draw power from nearby Cairn Wraiths and Tomb Banshees. That's a big deal, but it doesn't help enough. It says when a Black Coach in a Nighthaunt army uses its Evocation of Death ability, roll 1 dice for each Cairn Wraith and Tomb Banshee within 12 inches of the Black Coach instead of for each Death Wizard. Because you're not going to have Death Wizards, unless you ally them. So let's take a real quick look at the coach, okay? This is one of the reasons, and I want to talk about this before we get into the lists, because this is one of the reasons why I have a bit of a problem with the Black Coach and with this particular ability. I don't think that we're going to see that used very much. All right, here's the Black Coach. Once this clears. Okay, so it's a really cool looking model. There's been some great conversions for the Black Coach. It's a metal model, so I guess it's the kind of thing that they're looking to phase out. Maybe we'll get a new Black Coach. Maybe we'll get an update to the War Scroll. This is taking a minute for it to clear up. But it used to be a lot better. It used to be ethereal. It doesn't, for some reason, it's not ethereal now. It used to have ethereal, I think, as one of the level ups. And it really needs that back because it'd be nice to lock that 4-up save. It used to have a ward save, a save versus all wounds. I think it was a 4-up or a 5-up. I don't remember. Back in 8th edition, and when it got updated for AOS, it got downgraded a lot. And that's too bad. I would love to have seen that even be as one of the upgrades, because a lot of the paint jobs for this great model, conversions and whatnot, were kind of it becoming ethereal. And that was what my plan was. And I'm still going to do that, hoping that maybe they'll update this model in some way. But the idea is that one of the upgrades became a big, and it was basically every time, for every wizard you had within a certain range, you roll on a 6, you get bumped up one of these levels. There used to be 6 levels. Now there's only 5. And it would get better. It would, scythes would appear. It could fly. It would move faster. All these different things. It does that now. The reason to get this right now is because it's a 7-wound leader. This is a leader. It is one of your leaders. You can give it more stuff. You can give it artifacts. You can give it a command trait. And being it's a 7-wound model, that's a big deal. But why is it only a 4-up with no with no chance to be ethereal. That's a problem for me. I would have loved to see that, where maybe on the third or fourth level, that 4-up could be locked. That would be really cool. Like the transition of what we used to see of it now becomes a thing. I think that was a missed opportunity. I think that was very misguided because it's crunchy. You may have a couple extra wounds than the regular Banshee or Canwraith, but it's easy. It's going to be far easier to go down, and it just doesn't fit if this is the only corporeal item on the table when you have a Nighthaunt army. So with that in mind. Because you could still use this with that ability. You can bring it onto the table, so you would make sense if it was a more of an ethereal item. So I was surprised to see that. So some of the things you have, you reroll failed hits for the Reaper Scythe if the target unit has 5 or more models. That's nice. You're going to see a lot more bigger units, and typically you're going to have 5 or more models. So it's not going to be something you're going to be using against like a leader type, a hero. Evocation of Death. This is that ability where if there's a lot of Death Wizards on the table, you can start upgrading it, but now we're using the Canwraiths and the Banshees. Fine. So first level, you get the Gleaming Scythes. So when you make a charge within 1 inch, you can select an enemy unit, and you can dish out die 3 mortal wounds. That's pretty cool. This thing is meant to get into damage. It's got a decent move already at 10. So that's awesome. Anything that dishes out mortal wounds is good. The second level, once if you roll enough 6s again with enough of these Banshees and Canwraiths in range, you'll start upgrading them, and you do this every turn. So it's a pretty big deal. Now it moves 14 instead of 10. So that's pretty sweet. You might be holding this thing back, in the backfield, maybe trying to make sure that it upgrades a little bit before you start. That's how I used to use it before you unleash it mid to late game. That's a smart move. So I would suggest doing that. It's definitely, there's a lot of these missions are really about playing for the late game as opposed to trying to get an early start on the points. So that's another wonderful thing about the General's Handbook scenarios. Third level, you add 1 to all to hit rolls for the Black Coach. It needs it. Its main to hit rolls start at 4-up, and that's not great. That's just 50-50 shot. So anything that gives you an extra plus. But that's 3 levels in now. You got to roll enough 6s and have enough Canwraiths and Banshees locally within 12 inches to actually have that, to even get there. And as we all know, that's why we roll the dice. Nothing's guaranteed. On the 4th level, it can fly. That's pretty good. Suddenly at level 4, you have 14-inch move and a level and you can fly. That's wonderful. And on the 5th level, I'm not so worried about this. It can unbind. That's good. It's not great. I mean, it's probably going to be late game before that shows up. It's probably, it could matter if this thing is even alive. Then, again, I would have loved to have seen them incorporate something different. Maybe add in that ethereal ability, maybe at the 3rd or 4th level at most. Something to reach for that was a little bit more substantial and mattered a little more. Because unbinding is not bad, but there's a lot of spellcasters that are out that get pusses. So you're going to be probably without any bonuses unbinding. At least it gives you a shot to stop a Mystic Shield or to stop maybe some other type of an attack spell that could be wreaking havoc to you, especially since Mortal Wounds are one of the Achilles heels of this army. Even though you might get a 6-up save with a leader in proximity within 6 inches, it's still a big issue because your main defense is the fact that you're ignoring rend on your standard attacks. So that's the thing with the Black Coach. I did not include the Black Coach in any of my lists. So this is one of the reasons why. The only reason to include it is because it's got a few more wounds, but that few more wounds is offset by the fact that it's not ethereal. Really, again, I'm lamenting about it because it's such a cool, there's so many cool paint jobs we've seen of this, and it fits the army so well. So it's just too bad that's the case, but then we can always look to the future. It's an opportunity maybe that we'll be seeing something along these lines going down the road to bring in to the faction, because now we have it. Maybe there'll be even a battle tome. Maybe this thing will be fleshed out with just independent wreleases. I will make a comment here about this. This army has allegiance abilities. Phenomenal. I'm so excited about that. I wish there was at least a battalion of some type, something that gave it some extras. It would be wonderful, but I think that, again, that's something that we'll probably see down the road, I would hope. It would be nice to be able to see a battle tome that kind of incorporated, even if it was a generic battle tome, not a generic, but a battle tome encompassing several different of the sub-factions. Maybe we'll see a death battle tome next year that will be something for the Death Lords and provide you with battalions for a couple of different things, even combining some of these sub-factions. But we'll have to see. I can only prognosticate. All right, command traits. How do we improve our leadership's ability with some of these command traits? Hatred of the Living. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by the general, unless the target's death or demons. I don't know why that's the case. It's too bad. I guess they have resilience to these things, but that's all right. You know, it's again, it's situational. It's not one I would take necessarily, because you know you're taking several very commonly seen armies that may be on the table or at a tournament, and you're not, you know, then you're wasting it for your general. If you want to have that general be out there and trying to attack, you want him to be able to be effective against just about anything you can. This is a nice one. Terrifying entity, subtract 1 from the bravery of enemy units within 6 inches of your general. This is a good one to give to your Banshee, because the Banshee Scream can dish out more wounds, but it's matched against the bravery. I would like to have seen more like bravery bomb type elements that could stack here. For instance, with the, again, this is another nerf with the Morngul, where the Morngul used to have, if you had a really substantially low bravery, it actually incurred an additional -1 to your to your attack. I would love to have seen that have been replaced with maybe within 6 inches, it reduces your bravery a further -1, because that's a great thing to stack with the Banshee and with this command trait to be able to do more mortal wounds to the Scream. So I don't know if anybody in GW is watching. Keep an eye out. Maybe take some suggestions for future adjustments. That would be a wonderful thing to have seen, as opposed to taking away that extra -1, which was a little bit excessive to be able to get -2 to hit. That's what I think the thing a lot of people were complaining about too. All right, but this is nice. It's a nice thing to add in if you're putting your Banshee up front. That would be a good thing to utilize. It could be that maybe your general is even off board. Maybe the general's in the underworld and you want to plop your general down. You don't have to have your general on the table, but you can plop your general down and within range. And now you basically, at best, you have a 10 bravery on like demons and death units. Now they're a 9. And you're blasting away with your Scream, and you have a better chance to do some mortal wounds. Lingering Spirit, you add 1 to the general wounds characteristic. This is a big one. Banshees and Cairn Wraiths only have 4 wounds, so bump it up to 5. You could also give this if you wanted to take a Black Coach at 7 wounds, make it an 8. Make it a little more resilient. It's definitely a worthy thing to bring in Black Coach if that's what your thought process is. I have reservations about it because it's 120 points. I can get 2 Cairn Wraiths for that, and they're separate targets. And more things that have to be shot at that could take away from the units that are in the underworld. All right, Pitiless Executioner, add 1 to the damage caused by an attack made by the general if the hit was a 6 or more. We don't see a lot of pluses to the hits for this subfaction. There's not a lot of synergies that are going to be adding to it, so maybe that's a future possible expansion thing, but at this point, it's just not enough for me to want to take that. So Cloaked in Shadow. Add 1 to the general save rolls. This is a good one. I'm really tempted about this one. I like this one. I'm going to be using this. Why? You have a 4-up save for your general, and it's unrendable. So unless, again, you're saturating them with a lot of attacks, or if you're using mortal wounds, you know that your save is going to be static. So if you add 1 to that, you can get a 2-up save. You could have a Cairn Wraith be your general, be at 4-up, in cover 3-up, add this Pitiless Executioner, you're now a 2-up. So it's a 2-up standard save. That's not bad. All right, and mortal wounds are going to melt right through it, but mortal wounds are mortal wounds. They're out there, but they're not every attack. So if somebody's doing a lot of shooting or trying to snipe you or even try to assassinate you with standard attacks, 2-up, that's pretty good. Okay, you only got 4 wounds, but you're going to be blocking a substantial amount of them with that. So that's definitely one to look at. Ruler of the Spirit Host. This is one that's very commonly going to be used. I would highly recommend it, especially if you're looking to kind of bring in a lot of units or the Morngul with just a lot of points from the underworld. So as long as the general is alive, you can re-roll the dice when attempting to call a unit from the underworld to the battlefield. See the Ethereal Ruler's battle trait. This is key. If you roll that 1 or 2, that unit's not coming in, and you want it. There maybe you're holding off till even turn 3, maybe even turn 4, and just waiting for that end game to kind of take advantage of these units that are not being targeted. You want to make sure that when you roll, it comes in when you want it to. So if you fail, you need that re-roll. That's a very important one to take. Okay, moving on to the artifacts. So, and I'm going to show you my list very shortly, but let's just go look at this first. There's some really interesting ones here. Cloak of the Waxing Moon. Your opponent must subtract 1 from wound rolls made for enemy weapons that target this model. Okay, here's the key thing, melee weapons. So you can shoot and not incur that, but that's a pretty good deal, subtracting 1. Pretty nice if there's a Morngul nearby, because now it's -2, and we have the same mechanic as before. So if you're going to take this, you probably want to match up your general with the Morngul, because in proximity, he or she is going to be a lot more survivable. Pendant of the Fell Wind. Add 3 inches to the movement characteristic of any friendly Nighthaunt units within 6 inches of this model at the start of the movement phase. I like this. If you want to go for a long shot, charge, maybe you want to have your Mourngul or your Hex Wraiths, or even just a large unit of Spirit Hosts get in and get close enough where they can get a really good charge distance, a short charge distance. This is important, and this is at the start of the movement phase. So if you're bringing the models down from the Underworld, I don't think it'll apply because it's in the movement phase. It's not at the start. You have to begin the movement phase with them nearby. But let's say your general is near one of these key units that's on the battlefield. Keep them close. Now they're getting 3 inch more charge. That Hex Wraith unit is going to get, let's see what the Hex Wraiths are real quickly. I think there are 12, but they may be more. I gotta remember here. Let's see. All right, we'll bring up the Hex Wraiths once this clears. They're 12. Okay, so I was right. Now they're a 15-inch move. That is pretty nice. I'm pretty happy about that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and come back to this. And then, the Mourngul is, I think, a 10. That's not bad. Move that to a 13. That's sweet. Dreadbolt Ring. If this model inflicts 1 or more wounds with its attacks in the combat phase, you can inflict a mortal wound on 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of the model after this model completes its other attacks in the phase. All right. When they're talking about this model, that's going to lead to some interpretation issues. Are they talking about the model, the general, or are they talking about the model that you attacked? I think that's going to be up for interpretation. I'd love to know what people think about that. I bet you that's going to be something that's going to need to be FAQ'd, added to the long list of FAQ questions that people have to ask. But I'm sure that somebody is going to, they're a wordsmith or an English major or something, and they'll tell me what they think it is. But that's going to be one of those things that's unfortunately a little vague. So if I read it again, if this model inflicts 1 or more wounds with its attack in the combat phase, you can inflict a mortal wound on 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of the model after this model completes its other attacks in the phase. I'm venturing to guess, because of the way it's worded, that it's talking about the general, that after you complete that, you've inflicted a mortal wound. I really don't believe that it's the other model, because it's saying this model. It could be, they could have said that. I don't know. Argue away. I'm sure that there's going to be people. There's always somebody that has to be the contentious voice on the possible explanations. But I can't believe that this would be discounted if, for instance, your general dies in combat after it inflicts a wound, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to try and say that you don't get that mortal wound. I'm sorry, you get that mortal wound. That's the reason why you picked this thing. I really believe it's as soon as you're done with your attacks, you inflict a mortal wound. Okay, so tell me what your thoughts are on that. But hopefully that's not going to be an issue. Light Shard of the Harvest Moon. I like this one. You can use this artifact once per battle. Usually when that happens, it's once per battle. It's pretty good. When you do so, you can re-roll failed hit rolls for friendly Nighthaunt units within 6 inches of this model when they attack in that phase. So this is really big, because it's not just one unit. It's everything within 6 inches. So if your general is up there with a unit of Hex Wraiths or a unit of Spirit Hosts, and there's also a Mourngul nearby, you could possibly get 2 units with this. Maybe even 3. It depends. But 2 units I'm sure you could sit between or be within 6 inches, maybe just a little further back or maybe right up in the front. You're going to get it too, by the way, because you're within 6 inches of yourself. When I say you, I mean the general, because these are artifacts for heroes. It doesn't have to be the general, but for heroes. So yeah, you could even give this to the Black Coach if you choose to take it, make it a little bit more effective. But that's nice. You're only going to pop it once, but when you need it, that one time you're going to need it, great. Go do it that way. You want to make it count. And we all know how much it sucks if your dice flub, and having the ability to re-roll, it's not just rolls of 1, it's all your roll, all your failed rolls. That one time you may need it, especially if it's something like the Mourngul, who may be hurt, likely is going to be hurt more than usual, and may need to be able to do some damage so that it can get its heal back at the end of the combat phase. Next one is the Midnight Tome. The bearer of the Midnight Tome becomes a wizard and knows the Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield spells. They can attempt to cast 1 spell. They can also unbind. This is nice. I like this only insofar as it allows you to... I'm not concerned as much about using an Arcane Bolt. I'm not concerned about it. Maybe you want to summon with this if you really need to. I don't know if that's necessary. I'd rather take an ally who's a better spellcaster. But for this, it's for the Mystic Shield. You want to get this guy somewhere where he can be hidden or unseen, but within range and within line of sight well, you don't have to hide them really, but within range and line of sight of a unit to give them that Mystic Shield. Because if you can get that off, and you can do it behind enemy lines, behind your lines where the enemy may not be even close enough to unbind it, you can get that Mystic Shield off. You could take one of these units with a 4-up save and make it a 3-up, and that, even a 2-up, depending on whether it's on cover. And because they're unrendable, the Spirit Hosts, the Hex Wraiths, even the Mourngul, it really makes them that much more resilient. I would do it on the Mourngul more than anything else, because the Mourngul is going to be a magnet for all kinds of attacks. The thing that's going to kill it mostly is going to be saturation of attacks, just like before, and mortal wounds. So you can't add its protection to mortal wounds right now. It's I think a 5-up now and a 6-up if you have a hero nearby. That's not bad. Still not bad. Before it was pretty tough. 4-up and a 6-up. Could even move a 4-up and a 5-up with the old rules, which really made it sick. And that's what I think a lot of people are complaining about. Now it's at best, it's a 5-up, 6-up if you have a character nearby. So things are going to get through if they're mortal wounds. But in this case, we want to get that 3-up unrendable and it doesn't benefit because it's a behemoth. It doesn't benefit from cover. Get that Mystic Shield on that baby and get it at 2-up. So now it's going to be hard to really dish damage to, or at least harder. So that's the only reason why I would take that one. But it's a good reason, because if you could take your Hex Wraiths from a 4-up to a 3-up, even better. Covetous Familiar. This is where you can roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of this model at the start of the combat phase. On a roll of 4 or more, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. I like this one for the Black Coach. I didn't take it. I'm not going to be taking it because I don't have I'm not using the Black Coach, but I might incorporate the Black Coach in. Depends. But because it has a larger footprint, you're going to get more enemy models potentially that within that 3-inch range. And that 3 is good. On a 4-up, anything that dishes out mortal wounds is a big deal. Okay. So let's take a look at just a couple of these War Scrolls real quickly before the lists. And we can talk about really why they're a little why Night Haunts is surprising to many people. Because when you look at here, let's take a look at Spirit Hosts just to start with. All right, Spirit Hosts. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. Let's see, it'll correct itself in a second. There you go. When you at first glance, it's not that impressive. Each of these is 3 wounds. These guys are like 120 for 3 of them, 120 points. 6 attacks is nice. 5 up to hit, it's not that stellar. 4 up to wound, again, that's not that stellar. No rend and a 1 damage. What is the big deal with these guys? It's the fact that if you roll a 6, it says a 6 or more, but there's no pluses here that we know of. If you roll a 6, it inflicts a mortal wound, and you get 6 attacks for each one. So for every time you buy 1 iteration of this unit, you're getting 18 attacks with the potentials to roll 6s. Every one of those 6s is a mortal wound, and you will be very surprised to see just how quickly those will add up. You get a unit of 6 in these, and you're dishing out 36 attacks, potentially. Maybe they're not all going to be able to hit because these are on the slightly larger bases. They're not on 25 millimeters. I think they're on 32s. The rounds. Either way, that's a volume of attacks that it's not about the 5-up, 4-up. It's about rolling those 6s. Unfortunately, it also incurs the penalty of if there's any debuffs, it's going to reduce your ability to get those 6s. It could eliminate them entirely. That is absolutely a thing. But the bottom line is it's all about those 6s. So when you're talking about this is your battle line, this is your main battle line unit. If you can dish out enough of these attacks, there's units that you might have 9 of these, 12 of these even. You're going to be getting. You want lots of Spirit Hosts. They're resilient, 4-up, not rendable. Only 3 wounds per base, but you're going to have plenty of these bases, and they get plenty of attacks. And they will support. When you look at, like, for instance, the Spirit Hosts that surround Nagash, the Mortarks, the Mortis Engine, the Coven Throne, anywhere from 6 to 12 of these attacks, those extra 6s add up. They surprise people. They'll start whittling you down. Anything that generates mortal wounds, that's the bread and butter of this army. Beyond that unrendable save, it's dishing out those mortal wounds on a 6. All right, next we're going to look at Hex Wraiths. All right, that's not Hex Wraiths. Here we go, Hex Wraiths. All right, Hex Wraiths. I love Hex Wraiths. I've loved them. I loved them in 8th edition. I wish that they made they didn't make the special ability they had so hard to happen. But this is consistency. It's about consistency, and you just need to take more of these guys. Their main thing is they're quick. They've got a 4-up unrendable. So yeah, you want to get that Mystic Shield on them or put them on cover. Yeah, you could summon these guys. You could summon the Spirit Hosts too. It's not terribly hard. They're a little expensive. I think they're 140 or 160. We'll take a look in a second. But they hit better than they used to. They used to not be so great in combat. Now they're two wounds. We've it's 2 years since AOS. I keep throwing back to 8th edition because I'm sure there's a lot of people returning to the game, but that didn't play AOS. But let's just say that they fight pretty good now. I love combining these guys in a general list with Blood Knights. I'll have these guys run in, absorb damage, get the screen for the Blood Knights, and then I'll retreat them out late in the second turn, charge the Blood Knights in. And the reason why I'm retreating them out is because they fly. And they fly at 12 inches, and I might even run them. So I'll get an extra die 6. And why am I doing that? Because if they can fly over an enemy unit on a 6, if you roll a 6, and this is not a modifiable 6, it's a roll of a 6, which is good, thankfully, that unit suffers a mortal wound. And this is one of the reasons why I like to put them in units of 10 as opposed to 5. Because you need more dice. There's plenty of times you roll those 5 dice if you can get all 5 to fly over a unit. Or an enemy, model, singular model, or whatnot. But you may not even be able to get them all. But you're not going to. There'll be plenty of times you're not going to roll any 6s. We all know how the dice work. So it'd be great to be able to do this within range of that reroll artifact too, because hey, yeah, I don't think that's going to work because it's not a to hit roll. It's just a roll, so it wouldn't work. So that's not the case. You got to look at the wording. It's not a to hit roll. But either way, on 6s, you get 10 shots with 10 of them, maybe only 8 of them, maybe even range. Who knows? Because remember, you got to end that movement outside of 3 inches from an enemy, so it has to be a legal move in that retreat. But that's what I would do. I would get them into combat, hopefully enough of them survive. That's why I like having 10, and then retreat them out. Get that bonus mortal wounds situation, and then have something come in and clean up. Move up, charge in, and do damage, and then these guys can move someplace else. I love that aspect. I wish it wasn't on a 6. I think it was like a 5 in the previous edition. But a 6 is, it's hard. But that's why you need to saturate these guys. But you're going to be taking more of them now. Why? Because they're battle line. So your core is probably going to be your 2 units of Spirit Hosts and one of these. Or maybe you have these as backups. You can deep strike them in or whatever. But I love them. I love the way they look. And even though they're not optimal for their points, I wish they had gone down maybe 10 or 20 points in their point cost. When they do get stuck in, they do pretty well. I've always been surprised at that. Even though it's a 4-up save, Mystic Shield, maybe they're on terrain, they could be a 2-up. I've had that happen, where I've had a unit of 5 or 10 of them, 2-up save, stuff bounces off them, and then you attack back 2 attacks each for the main guys with a -1 Ren. That's not so bad, and 2 attacks with the hooves and teeth from the horses. That's also pretty good. So they will surprise you. Are they a shit kicker unit? No, but they're effective and they're useful and they're worthy to put in there, and they look great on the table. Okay, so let's take a look at the Cairn Wraith. The Cairn Wraith is one of your leaders. Oh, wrong thing there. Let's do this again. The Cairn Wraith. We're going to go to the list soon. All right, I promise. But anybody who's not familiar with these guys, that's why I'm going through the War Scrolls. 4-up seems to be the standard save, but hey, look, it's not terrible. On cover, you're going to get to a 3-up. They're not behemoths. They're just regular rank and file guys. I used to like it when you could take these as units. I really wish that they had brought that back. It's not so much that I don't like them as leaders. It's that I just like the idea of seeing a unit of them. Seeing like 5 or 10 on the battlefield was really scary, and they could do some really good damage as a core unit. I would love to see, if they flesh this army out in the future, return the Cairn Wraiths to a unit of maybe they're 3 minimum, okay? And you could take them in blocks of 3 for 200 or something like that. No, it's 180. It would be 180. Maybe 180, and you get a discount if you max them out, or who knows. Bottom line is I like the idea of these being the shock troops of the army more than just the Spirit Host. But that's why we have Spirit Hosts. That's kind of what they are. But those are only 3 wounds. These guys are now leaders, 4 wounds each. Very easy to take off the table with any kind of focus fire with a large enemy unit, but that non-rendable is going to come into play. You can also summon them, so keep them in with reinforcement points if you're low on heroes. If you got a caster as an ally, or you use the artifact that allows you to cast, maybe you can bring one of these guys in. It's not terribly hard. It's a cast is a 5. It's not hard. It's not hard to do. You just want to make sure you're not getting unbound. The nice thing about these guys is that they get 3 attacks. 4-up, 3-up, -1 Ren, which is always nice, and 2 damage each. So that's not bad. You can fail. You can reroll fail to hit rolls if the unit has 5 or more. That's not bad. And look, that's all they got. They're 60 points. All right, 60 points for this. It's not terrible. Take many of them. take 3, take 4, take 5. I highly recommend it because they may die individually, but that's why you want backups. All right, now we're going to look at the Banshee really quickly. Let's see if I can find the Banshee here. There we go. No, that's the Black Coach. Did I even take the Banshee? There we go. Banshee. Beautiful model. But again, it's not a beat stick. This model is got limitations. It's 4 up wounds. Again, 4 up save, but it's unrendable. Let's really what the claim to fame with this one is. It's its howl. Yes, it has this chill dagger. It's chill. 4 up, 3 up, 1 attack only. It's got a -2 rend though. That's nice, but that 4 up is going to fail you when you need it. Die 3 damage is nice. So sweet. It's going to do some damage. Great, and on occasion. But the ghostly howl is where it's at. Yes. You also, by the way, you can also summon this one in as well with only a 5. And again, unrendable 4 up, not bad, but only 4 wounds. But these are 80 points. Why? Because of the Banshee howl. Now, this is situational. It's really measured against the bravery. So you're rolling 2 dice. You're measuring against the bravery. For every point that you're higher than the bravery of the unit that you're attacking, you do a mortal wound. It's good against some of the normal units, 6s or 7s. You just need to roll average or above average. And there's plenty of units out there that are really, really weak. You could do 2, 3 wounds. If you do even 1 wound, it's worth it. I mean, this is an 80-point model. It's not a giant leader with 10 or 12 wounds or more. You're going to have multiples maybe of these. You might want to deep strike them. You want to bring them in from the underworld, maybe in groups of 1 or 2 and around a unit, and just try to get those rolls that you failed. It's got a 10-inch range, so that 9-inch limit, you're outside of that, and that 10-inch, you're still in range of that howl. So maybe you got 1 or 2 of these options to scream, and it's not just doing standard damage; it's doing mortal wounds. So it will fail you, but when it works, it's going to work nicely. It's just you just don't rely on it. That's why you need more of them. You may even want to have that in conjunction with some of these other things, like that bravery, the bravery artifact, which is only unfortunately 8 inches. So it's not even going to come into play when you jump. When you pop in, it has to be when you're closer. Usually what you'll see with this Banshee is this Banshee might be in the front lines. It may even be 1 rank back. It may even have it mixed in between your spirit hosts, or maybe a spirit host and likely your Morngul, which again I wish had an aura of subtracting bravery. It would have been so much cooler if it had that. But the idea is it's there to scream a little bit off, so an extra wound or 2, and perhaps then run in and contribute and do an additional damage, whether it's your general or not. But it's also there mainly for that, giving that extra 6-up save also. So that's what you want to do. Maybe you have this thing in the background, just providing that 6-up save versus any wounds, and then just try to get that scream in here and there. It's not bad. Okay. So there's that. There's all the different units that we have. We're going to take a look at lists now. So I'm going to pull up the list. There we go. This is my first list. Now, the format that I'm using for all of the unlockings now is as follows. And if you've seen any of the previous videos, I've used to do it where I did 1,000, 2,000, 2,500. Not doing that anymore. I mean, on special cases, maybe I'll talk about it, but most of the games that I see, most of the games I hear about, all the tournament games are all around, they're all 2,000. There are some, segments where there's like 1,000-point games. We saw that at Adepticon and at 2,500. It was nice to have a plethora of that, but the standard is 2,000. And it probably will continue to be the case. So I'm going to build that 2,000, and I'm doing with these unlockings now. I've done a couple already since this new book came out, and I've got a bunch lined up for the next several weeks, and I'm going to be doing them for quite some time. And I've been doing them since launch. I've been doing it since before the first General's Handbook. I did the unlocking series. I started pretty much after Age of Sigmar first came out. So it's probably the longest running series related to Age of Sigmar out there, period, anywhere. Because again, it was pretty much from the first week that the Age of Sigmar was launched that I've been doing it. And I've got now over 300 videos. So not all of them made unlockings, but there's easily, I think I've gotten anywhere from, I'm probably approaching 100 of these now. Okay. So this is my list. The first list I'm doing with all of these is no allies. I want to do 1 list, no allies, 2 lists with allies. So anybody we have on the show that kind of goes over this stuff is going to be showing that to me as well. Yeah, I think it gives us a variety. Maybe we'll have some honorable mentions for possibilities for other allies, but just for time's sake, we'll only do 2 additional ones. But for allies, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at 4 Cairn Wraiths, and for some reason, I don't think I have. Yeah, there's supposed to be. I'm gonna hold on a second here. I may. Yeah, there is a. Use my little my Excel foo. I forgot to put that one thing in there. I did include a Banshee in this, and then you can see that it didn't adjust. It was in the hidden algorithm. All right, so I have 4 Cairn Wraiths and 1 Banshee. That's my leaders. No Black Coach. This is important. I might keep I may keep 1 Banshee, one Cairn Wraith in reserve. Maybe I can bring this guy down and where he's needed. If I lose one of my existing Cairn Wraiths, that's a very strong possibility because I got 4 of them. I want to put 3 of them up there. I want to try to marry each of them to one of my core battle line units. I have the Tomb Banshee, which is probably more than likely not going to be my leader. I'll probably make one of the Cairn Wraiths my leader and hide it. And then I have a unit of Hex Wraiths, 10 of them. So that's going to be the shock troops. I've got 3 units of Spirit Hosts. I probably will have one of these sitting in the underworld along with the Mourngul, because the Mourngul is probably going to get shot at, and I would really rather not have it be shot up before it does anything. And I'll take the risk of having the Mourngul fail because I'll have a plan in place should I fail that roll. We saw that, I think, on the feed when the first Night Haunts after GHB launched were played. The Mourngul didn't come out right away. I think it was the only one that failed the first time. But that way I have I have 3 things pretty much that I'm holding in reserve in the underworld. 2 units of Spirit Host, pretty big. 9 each. That's a lot. Okay. That's let's see, 3 wounds each. So we're talking about 6, 9. Yeah, it's a lot of wounds, but let's consider how many mortal wounds potentially you could be dishing out with 18 wounds for each of them. So it's 18 plus 36 plus another 18. Yeah, we're talking a lot of attacks potentially, and we're talking about a lot of wounds that you have as a buffer that you're gonna have to get through before that unit is taken off the table. So if we look at the allegiance abilities and that I took, the battle trait that I took is Deathless Spirits. That's a standard one. All right. I mean, everybody's going to get that. That's where one of these many leaders within range are going to they're going to provide a 6-up save against all wound types. So I want to have a redundancy there because you're going to lose a couple of these guys. So you want to have a few of them. I took Ruler of the Spirit Host again for that re-rolling save. If I want to get that Mourngul in turn 2, I mean, I might not get the second turn. I mean, I might not get top a second, but if I do, I want it in there. I want it in there. I want it on the table. It's gonna provide me with survivability. I may need it to kind of, attack a bunker on an objective. I may need it to put it in there to kill a very important character or monster that has good synergies or is threatening my units. I want to know the great thing about this ethereal rulers thing, where you can put these units in from the underworld, like a nice summoning that can't be unbound, is you don't know what's going to happen on the battlefield, and you hold a couple units back, and then you plug these holes where you need to put these units down, and you put them where you need them most, because the battlefield unfolds. Whatever your plans are, they're going to be gone by the end of turn 1, maybe even before turn 1. And deployment, suddenly you realize your plans have to be changed. So it's nice to have that kind of reactionary thing. That's the benefit and the power of this sub-faction. So if I'm going to hold back 400 of my points on a Mourngul, and Mourngul's still pretty good. We didn't even look at the Mourngul. Let's go look at the Mourngul before I keep going. So Mourngul, yes, it's in the Monstrous Arcanum. So let's open that up. All right, that's the Bone Grinder. It's further down here. This is the updated version. Look, you can make a really good list without ever looking at a Mourngul. Absolutely. But this is now 400 points. Let's see what the Mourngul now has. All right. It's got 10 wounds, very respectable. It is a monster. It's a behemoth. It can fly. It starts off with a 12-inch move. That's the best move that you're going to have with any of these models, save for maybe a black coach that's been souped up 3 levels or 2 levels. But that's still pretty good. It gets 8 attacks unwounded. That's awesome. It doesn't go down very fast. It goes down only 1 tick. So even when it's at really, really bad shape, it still has 4 attacks. That's pretty damn good. Great 3-up, 3-up, -1 rend. Unfortunately, it used to be a -2. That's unfortunate. Again, pretty big nerf there, the offensive capability. But it's 2 damage each, and you're getting a lot of attacks. Again, this is one of the reasons why I don't mind that it got weakened a little bit, but I think the points should have come down a little. So where's the abilities that really make this thing kind of terrifying? First thing is that if it slays any models at the end of the combat phase, it'll heal die 3 wounds. This is important. This thing needs to kill stuff to heal itself. I think it had another element where if it killed something, it got a wound back at the end of the turn. But if it killed something in combat, it immediately healed die 3 wounds. So they truncated that. And I'm okay with it. It's a lot of stuff to remember. It's too many things, on one page. Okay. But again, this baby ain't worth 400 points anymore, in my opinion. I'm going to say that again and again and again for all those whiners and complainers about the Mourngul. But it's close. It's close. I'd still bring 1 on the table. I wouldn't bring 2. It now subtracts 1 from hit rolls from any enemies, regardless of their bravery, within 6 inches. That's been the thing that most people, I think, are concerned about because it's a debuff. It's only 6 inches, though. It's never been more than that. Couple that with a lot of these other things that people have brought. You can incur a -2 to most units, and that could really make this thing survivable and can make other units nearby survivable. That's the power of this thing. So that's important to realize and remember that you're debuffing the opponent. That adds to your survivability. Okay, so it used to be that you would have an extra -1 if your enemy had a really bad bravery. I don't care that you lost that. It was very situational. It was only garbage units that it mattered, and more often than not, you forgot about it. Haunter of the Dark. Okay, so Mournguls are spectral creatures. Okay, so in addition to their 3-up, a non-rendable standard save, which, by the way, if you can get a Mystic Shield on this baby, do it. Because then it's a 2-up. If it's any mortal wounds, actually, I'm wrong here. Wait a second. In addition, roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to this model. On a 5-up, the wound is negated. Hey, that's pretty big. I just want to let you know I've changed my thoughts about this. I don't know if a lot of people have noticed this. I just noticed this now. I thought this was only against mortal wounds, this special save. This is against all wounds. So you get your standard save of 3-up, unrendable, potentially 2-up with if you have a Mystic Shield that you're able to get on this baby. But your Haunter of the Night is not a 4-up anymore like it used to be, which was only against mortal wounds. It's against all wound types. I'm going to read this again. All right? Ignore the attacking weapon's rend characteristic when making save rolls for this model. That's your standard 3-up, potentially 2-up. It doesn't get benefit from cover because it's a behemoth. In addition, roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to this model. On a 5-up, the wound is negated. That's actually, look, the fact that it's not a 4-up anymore, it's a 5-up now. I'm changing my mind a little bit about this. It's against standard wounds too. And on top of that, if you have a character, a hero nearby, which you definitely should, you'll get a 6-up. So I'm changing my opinion about this now that I've read this a little bit better. I'm not sure if a lot of people have caught that or not. I think a lot of people like me have thought that 4-up has been changed to a 5. So yeah, I think it's a little more valuable than it used to be because yeah, it's only a 5-up against mortal wounds and then a 6-up after that if there's a hero nearby. But getting a 3-up or even a potential 2-up if you can get a Mystic Shield on it and then getting another 5-up against standard shooting, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. It used to be a little nuttier, but that's not bad. I don't remember even if that was against just mortal wounds or I don't think it was against standard wounds, that extra special save before. So, hey, we'll have to check on that, but it really doesn't matter. That's what it is now. So, yeah, this thing's been changed a little bit, but it's not terrible. Not terrible. Still very effective. Okay, Ravening Onslaught. Once a Mourngul begins a blood-mad feeding frenzy, there is almost no stopping. And each time you roll a hit of 6 or more, or 6+, so it's or more. For a Mourngul's Nightmarish Claws and Fangs, add 1 to the weapon's damage characteristic for that attack. That's sweet. All right. So it's for each attack. Unfortunately, you have to keep a little bit of record keeping. But hey, that's not bad. You know, you're only going to get a -1 rend now, but then you're bumping from 2 to 3. That can be pretty good. You know, you're getting a lot of attacks to start off with, and even a wounded one down by like half is getting 6 attacks. That's not bad. 6, 3 up, 3 up, -1 rend, and now there's a potential that some of those could turn into a 3 damage each. They're starting off at 2. This thing can rip through units. It can really put a hurt on even the biggest leader types that are behemoths themselves, other monsters. And you can summon this baby. Now, you're not going to summon this thing. Maybe you'll do it if you're using reinforcement points for in another sub-faction or even the Grand Alliance. Certainly Arkan or Nagash would be somebody to want to summon it because you're going to get so many bonuses for both of them to do summoning. But in this faction, you're going to leave this thing off the table in most cases and then drop it in there from the underworld. And that's its claim to fame. And once it gets into up close, it's really kind of frightening. I've got my command trait, Ruler of the Spirit Host, so I can do that re-roll. So if I roll a 1 or 2, I'm not going to fail. And then I've got my Midnight Tome. Now, the reason why I picked the Midnight Tome is exactly for what I just said. I'm going to sit my general back, so I want to have at least one of these guys hiding. I'm not building this general so that I can go out there and kick ass. I want this general to be hiding someplace. I've got 3 or 4 other leaders to provide the means to bring in stuff from the underworld and to give that 6-inch 6-up save, the Deathless Spirits 6-up save against all wound types. That's fine. I want to have my general somewhere hidden away so that I have at least one survivable leader that can bring these guys in with the from the underworld, so I can get a roll. But on top of that, maybe I want to duck this one of these guys out, probably the Cairn Wraith, duck it out, and maybe if I give it the ability to cast a spell, I could throw a Mystic Shield on one of these units. And being that they're unrendable, and if it's not the Mourngol, if they're in cover, I can get them to a 2-up unrendable save. Not bad. Not bad at all. So that's a big deal. I think that's where it's at, why I would take the Midnight Tome. I'm not taking it so I can summon stuff, because I don't have any reinforcement points. I'm taking it to buff that unrendable save. Try to get something to a 2-up. If I can throw that that Mystic Shield on the Mourngol, it's now at a 2-up. It's not going to get cover bonus, so you need something to improve it. 3-up's pretty good, but I'd like to have a 2-up. Then that thing's going to absorb all kinds of damage. And it has the potential, even if it gets wounded, to heal back up. So that's a big deal. That's what I'm taking for my non-allies list. And it gives you, look, this is not sexy and exciting. There's not a lot of variety here. But what it does well. And it's very interesting. It's very fluffy. You don't have some really personality character. The most personality you have really is the Mourngol. But either way, I like the mechanic. I think it'll be fun to play. I mean, it depends on your style. And I think it has some answers to a lot of problems. What is the weakness of this list? Quantity. Quantity is a big deal. There's missions where you need lots of heroes. You got that. There's missions where you need monsters now in the new with the new scenario pack. You only have one monster, and it's gonna be a magnet for everything on the battlefield. So you might lose that. But what's it really losing? Quantity. All right. You need a lot of these missions require you to have units body count. So yeah, you have a couple of units with 9. There's one with 10, one with 6. Sure, and they have some pretty good resilience, but they don't restore like you see, for instance, with zombies and skeletons or ghouls, where ghouls, the flesh eater courts can recover wounds, not just ghouls themselves, but the multi-wound models can heal very quickly. If you don't eliminate them, they can heal, and there's ways to actually bring them back if they've been depleted. It's very hard to put them down for the count. So other armies have other means. Blood Knights can restore a model. Black Knights can restore models. There's ways to get the bodies back. You don't have that in this army. They don't recover, but they do have a lot of ways to absorb damage, and they can kick out a lot of damage, not just from their regular attacks, but because they can dish out lots of mortal wounds. If I added up, let's see, not counting the Hex Wraiths, just 18, 24, multiply each of those by 6. All right, you're talking about almost 150, just short of 150 attacks from just the spirit hosts. All right, you're not going to get all of them in all at once, and they're not going to hit. But there's a lot. You're going to roll a lot of dice, and you're going to roll a lot of 6s, and that's a lot of mortal wounds, and that will chip through stuff. It'll wipe units off the table, even if they have good armor saves. There's not a lot of things out there, especially rank and file troops, that have saves versus mortal wounds. And if they do, let's say they're a death army or a demon army, if they do, how many of them do they have? How good is it? You're going to get stuff through. They're going to ignore standard saves, and enough of them are going to get through. So there you go. That's the no allies one. So let's talk about my allies one. My first one, and I'm not sure which one I like better of these. My first one is really trying to make up for some of the holes in the fact that you don't have volume. So you'll see there's a lot of similarities. I've got 4 Cairn Wraiths here and 2 Tomb Banshees. I'm probably going to try to pop one down, or maybe both of them. I might make one of my Cairn Wraiths the general and pop both the Banshees within range of an enemy unit, try to scream it off, perhaps nearby or behind the lines of another unit that I pop down. I've got 10 Hex Wraiths still, a smaller variety of Spirit Hosts, 2 units of 6 each. Still very respectable. And the BA, by the way, for anybody who's seeing it, that's my Battle Line Allegiant. So they're become Battle Line. I've got my one Mourngul, but here are my allies. And if you don't know how this works in GHB 17, if you get 25%, in this case, no, it's 20%, you get 400 points of allies out of your 2,000. So you can take it from accepted sources. In this case, I took a White King and Skeletal Warriors, which is conveniently exactly 400 points. And why did I do that? I did that because the White King is not, and the skeletons are not going to benefit from the ethereal rulers, the 6-up save within 6 inches, because they're outside the allegiance. They don't get the standard death allegiance, and they don't get a death rattle benefit or anything like that. They will not get that benefit because they're allies. But the White King has a banner, and the White King's banner is pretty amazing. Let's go talk about this real quickly. So my Skeletal Warriors, you know what? Let's first talk about Skeletal Warriors. Skeletal Warriors, you're getting a nice discount now for the Horde. And this needs to be updated in the app, by the way, because they screwed it up. They removed this one and only left the Tomb King version, which doesn't have the right keywords, but it will be corrected. I've actually even been in contact with the guys who are the app developers, and they said they're aware of it. A lot of people have been complaining about it. They're going to update it because they're 2 different scrolls. And this is not, they updated the one in the app to reflect what's in the compendium, which is the Skeletal Warrior ones. So let's just have the understanding that it's going to get updated if you don't see it with the right keywords in the app, and they're still part of Death Rattle. Okay. In any case, these guys, they're not stellar when you look at their stats. I almost always take them in spears, with spears, because you have the 2-inch range, 5-up, 4-up. They add +1 to hit if there's a death hero nearby. It doesn't have to just be the White King. That could be one of the, that could be a Cairn Wraith or a Banshee, because those are death heroes. Okay. The Skeleton Legion, they make 1 extra attack if they have 20 or more, and they make 2 extra attacks if they have 30 or more. So I took 40. And with the new rules, the Horde discount, it's 280 points. So that's pretty big. That's amazing, actually. The effectiveness, 40 of these guys, okay, or look, if anything doesn't have a rend, by the way, they'll get an extra plus to their save, so they can get that 6-up to become actually a 5-up, which is nice. Good unit to put a Mystic Shield on too. Get it from that 6-up to a 5-up, potentially to a 4-up. Not bad, not a bad choice. You know, give it a little extra padding, and it's got that. It's going to have that 6-up because you're going to have well, I'll talk about it in a second. You're not going to get the 6-up standard because it's not part of the sub-faction, but the White King, which I'll go pull up in a second, has a banner that allows you to kind of duplicate that. It's actually a little bit better. Okay, so the White King, their banner allows you to get a 6-up save within range of the banner, 9 inches. So, and why is that the case? Because it's if a model is slain, let's say you know after you've made your standard skeleton saves, the standard skeleton saves, you know, 6-up or 5-up, you fail those, the model dies, right? You get the 6-up save from the banner within 9 inches, and if it plants it, it's even further. I believe it's an 18-inch. All right, now. What's really important about this is that even though this is an ally, it's any death model. So this save bleeds over to your Spirit Hosts and your Hex Wraiths and your General and all your characters and the Mourngul, giving them an extra 6-up save beyond the 6-up save that you get from the actual sub-faction. So this White King is not just providing a lost save for itself and for the 40 skeletons, of just a basic 6-up save against anything, any wound that kills you, The Night King is going to have to work through its 5 wounds. Only on its last wound is it going to apply. But when you only have 1 wound models and skeletons, they're going to get that. They're going to get that. They get any wound that makes it through is going to kill them. They get that 6-up save. But you go back to your spirit hosts and your other models, and they're death units. So being that they're death units, they're going to get their 4-up non-rendable, maybe boosted potentially by cover or even my Mystic Shield. They're going to get, if there's one of the regular heroes from like a Cairn Wraith or a Banshee, they're going to get their 6-up. If the White King is in range with a planted, or not, even with not planted, if it's within 9 inches, because you're definitely going to have these guys nearby your skeleton unit. But once they get stuck in, your White King can go plant, not move, and plant that banner and extend it out to 8 inches in every direction. Any of the Night Haunt units that are in range are going to get an extra 6-up save if it's their last wound. Okay? Now, remember, some of these are 2 or 3 wounds, so it's not going to be every time. But before that unit dies, you could get an extra save. That's a big deal, that last wound. So keep that in mind, okay? That's really important. Okay, moving on. That mitigates some of the loss with the skeletons, and the skeletons are kicking out tons of attacks. Let's go look back at the skeletons really fast. Like I said before, we're taking 40 of these guys. All right, it's really convenient. Discounted Skeleton Warriors, 280 points for 40. Let me make sure I got that right. Let's make sure my math is not outlandishly off. That would change everything. Here we go. Skeletons for Death Rattle. I'm looking at it now. Skeleton Warriors, 280 points. Maxed out at 40. 280 points. Plus 120 for your White King. That's 400 points. That's your allies. You get 40 of these guys. They're getting 4 attacks each, maxed out. That's a lot of attacks. Maybe it's only a 5-up, 6-up, but because they got a 2-inch range with spears, you're going to have a lot of them. They're going to be able to get into the fight. So it's not going to be unheard of that you have 60, 80, maybe 100 of these attacks on one enemy unit. Now, granted, there's a lot of units out there that have great saves. There's a lot of units out there that can reroll ones, maybe even all their saves, depending on what the kind of boost they get. This is not a rend attack. It only does 1. There's a lot of models out there that might get special saves too, like Nurgle stuff or whatnot. You may even have debuffs, like with Nurgle, for example, or even other death that might remove that ability to hit on a 5-up to a 6-up. All right? And 6 is always hit now, so if you make it worse, it's not going to matter. But you're throwing a lot of dice. It is crazy to throw this much dice. So get a dice tray. Use a cup. All right? It's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass to move a lot of these skeletons. But you have 1 unit of 40. And what's important here is that this is a unit that can blend most units in the game. You could take down behemoths. The Stonehorn is each one of these hits now it doesn't get halved. It's supposed to half the damage. You can't half a 1. All right, so it's going to be 1 minimum. This thing will bring down a Stonehorn in 1 turn. This 1 unit for 280 points. Even a Frostlord or a Huskar on a Stonehorn is going to probably die to this thing in 1 turn because of the new Stonehorn rule, the new FAQ. It's going to run through, if not kill, severely wound even the best units in the game, even the biggest leaders and behemoths. This is a shit kicker unit, and it's really surprising to a lot of people. And there's 40 of them. So you're going to need to lose at least 11 of them before it loses that extra boost with its attack. And on top of that, it recovers die 6 each turn of lost skeletons. This is the unit you want to throw your command trait. You want to throw your command ability on it for Battle Shock immunity. Absolutely. Because the biggest thing that makes a unit of zombies at 60 or a unit of skeletons at 40 Battle Shock, just wipe out is because of Battle Shock. And if you can make it immune, that you need to use that command ability on this unit. So that's what I would do. General is going to have to use its command ability. It's going to have to be in range, use its command ability on this unit, and you can do it. It's still part of the army. Just because it's out of faction doesn't mean that command ability, your command abilities, and every general has it. Even if it's not, you don't have a specific one on the profile, which is again something that's kind of bugs me. You don't have a leader on this that has a unique command ability, but you have Battle Shock immunity. Put it on the Skeleton Warriors. And what's important about having this unit on the battlefield is you need quantity, right? That's what was lacking in that previous list. All right, we had 2 units of 9, 1 unit of 10. This is a unit of 40. And there's a couple of rules in there that if you have a unit of 20 or more, you still get to score an objective if you're within proximity. So you want to have at least 1 unit, if not more, that has volume. This is a unit that can walk across, take an objective, bunker down there. All right. If somebody alpha bunkers, which is a thing now, we're coining that phrase. It's been established, for several weeks now. So it used to be alpha striking was the big thing. Well, the new meta is going to be looking at a lot of alpha bunkering, plopping down through summoning or other means. In this case, from the underworld units onto an objective and sitting there and scoring that objective. Not for every scenario, but there's certain scenarios where you need to do that. And then sitting there and it's like, come at me, bro. Try and bleed me down. You put a unit of 40 skeletons on a quantity-driven objective in one of the scenario that uses it. Try and get through it. Yes, you can. Sure, you can. But we got a White King there, and maybe we'll throw a leader, one of the Cairn Wraiths there. So the Cairn Wraith's not going to help, but that Cairn Wraith's going to be boosted by the fact that the White King's present. But really, more importantly, maybe I'll put the Mourngul there. I'll put the Cairn Wraith to help protect the Mourngul with an extra 6-up save. The White King is going to affect the Mourngul with its last wound. Okay, if the last chance, when it happens that you roll dice for a reason, that 6s come up. I'm telling you, it's happened to me. It's happened to, I'm sure everybody, that rare case that you can go back to that you'll never forget when you needed that one roll and you needed a 6 and you got it. Hey, that's why you want to have those layers. That gives you the chance, but you throw that in there, and then those skeletons could be even they're being attacked now at a -1. The Mourngul's got to reach. It could sit in the second rank of these spearmen. You have one layer of spearmen in front of it, or it could be right up in the front and have the spearmen kind of just off to one side. Whatever the situation is, you can make that a scary combination. And even if it's just by itself with the White King, it can take an objective and hold it pretty effectively. Other things that can blast through this, sure. Every army has something. Every army. And there's plenty of things that will overcome this. This is not invincible. But it'll give your opponent pause. They're going to have to address that or avoid it. But if they can't pussyfoot if they're going to play with it, because they're going to get whatever they throw in there half-assed without good support, something that's not going to be equally scary, it's going to get blended. All right. And then the unit's just going to recover back. So I like that as a combination to shore up the weaknesses of Nighthaunt. That's why I love allies in this edition. So what are my battle traits? Obviously, Deathless Spirits. And then Ruler of the Spirit Hosts. Why? Because I'm probably going to have maybe 1 or 2 of these units. Definitely the Mourngul. Probably a couple of Cairn Wraiths to pop back, to get those extra the basic saves and support some of these units if I've lost some of the heroes, if somebody's sniping me. I want to be able to re-roll that. So that's my thing. I like that. I like that ability. I have the idea of having the general sitting back, and then in Midnight Tome. Why? Maybe I'll throw a Mystic Shield onto the Skeletal Warriors. Maybe I'll throw it on the Mourngul. Okay. Maybe I need an Arcane Bolt. I'm going to have my general sitting back somewhere hiding, hopefully where it can't be seen or alpha struck, and then come out as needed to support. And because again, if the leaders in Nighthaunt were more effective, more powerful, could stand in there. If the Mourngul, for instance, was the leader, that would be awesome. Too bad it's not. But if there was a powerful leader type, more wounds, better defenses, nice array of abilities, then we would do something differently. But since it's not, I want to leave one of those guys in the somewhere out of shot, within range to affect these units in some capacity, so that because I want to be able to boost them, and a Mystic Shield is really the way to go as far as I'm concerned. All right, moving on. Next one. With allies. All right. I'm looking to take a similar set. Cairn Wraiths 3, Tomb Banshees 1, 10 Hex Wraiths, 2 units of 6 Spirit Hosts, and a Mourngul. But now I'm taking Arc in the Black and a Corpse Cart. So, Arc in the Black and a Corpse Cart, big deal. He's a big caster. I'm going into a very much different route now. I want to bring in somebody who can spellcast, who can buff, and I might be summoning just a few things. Now, why did I take a Corpse Cart? Because I'm thinking of taking Direwolves, maybe zombies. Nothing crazy, just another unit to kind of supplement the volume. All right, so maybe even taking a Cairn Wraith. I have 120 points of reinforcement points that I'm not using in my main list. Okay, So that's a big deal. I want to be able to have some flexibility with reinforcements. So that's important. So even though it's 120 points, what's that going to give me? That could give me one more unit of Spirit Hosts. But I like having the ability to put something in that could be, for instance, really, really quick, like a Direwolf unit. They're really much more capable than people give them credit for. You got to really take a look at that. So let's see here. Actually, iDuff just posted to me. Yeah, well, let's forget the entire thing I just talked about in the last 20 minutes. This is illegal. I need to read this stuff more carefully. Why? This is not able to be allied. These are death rattle. All right. Well, let's take a look at something else. They are only able to ally with Death Lords, which is what this is, and with Soul Blight. So we're going to have to rejigger some of this stuff. What we have here is a corpse cart, which is from Deathwalkers. I should really look and make sure. I don't think so. No, Soul Blight. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be forgetting about this corpse cart. And you're going to be forgetting about this number here. And you're going to have 200 points of summoning. Actually, 220. I'm going to take Arc in the Black. He's a Death Lord. All right. And I can summon stuff. Now I have 200 points. Gives me a lot of options. I like the idea of taking Arkin. Why? He can cast 2 spells. Hey, I'm sorry about that last like 20 or 30 minutes there. I should know better. But let's talk about what this list is here if you're going to take some allies. Arc in the Black. He actually, if he summons, which is what you want to do here, he summons with bonus. So I think he gets already like a +2. Let's go see if I can pull him up. And we can take a look at what his option is. He gives a much-needed spell-casting capability. He's only 320 points, which is really, really cheap. All right? Let's go pull up Arkin. All right, Arc in the Black. Starting off, unwounded, +2 to cast, +2 to unbind. But he adds 1 to his casting roll if it's a death unit that he's summoning in. All right, so if he's using a summoning unit, he's +3 to start off with the cast. That's not bad. You need that, especially when you're dealing with like Tzeentch or anybody else who might have a +2 unbind. All right, he's got some nice stuff here. He can fight. He's got a decent save of 4+. He's got the Spirit Hosts that swirling around it with their claws and daggers. Only 6 attacks from those, but they on a 6-ups they cause mortal wounds. He could do some pretty good damage. He's got a bunch of attacks. 1 for 3-up, 3-up, -1 Rend, die 3 damage. Another one, 4-up, 3-up, -1, die 3 damage. The actual Razarak, which is his mount, his Abyssal Terror. He has a 4-up, 3-up, -2 Rend with 2 damage each. That's not bad. That goes down, but not terribly so. Even just half killed, down half its wounds, it's still doing 5 or even 4 attacks, which is not terrible. So plenty to work with there. He has 2 spells. So you could buff with a Mystic Shield, which is lovely for Nighthaunt. You can shoot out an Arcane Bolt if you need to. I would leave Arc in the Black further in the back early on. And then just summon stuff that's non-standard, not part of this list. Even potentially stuff that's not allyable, because the summoning doesn't matter. What you could take initially on the table, as has just been pointed out, is very specific to the list of specifics that you have in the new book. And you could see, as much as I've read through this stuff, this is early, this is new, it's only 2 weeks old. We can all make errors, and I just made one. So my apologies, and thank you to iDuff for pointing that out. But in the chat, but. Now let's talk about Arkin. He is legal. He's a Death Lord, and he can throw down a Curse of Years, which is a wonderful thing to use on a very powerful enemy. It doesn't work as well in large units. It's not one of those. It has only a casting value of 6, so he's going to be casting on a 4 basically. I did take the Corpse card initially to get an extra +1, but can't do that now because now I'm seeing it. That's a Death Walker. And not a Soul Blight or a or a Death Lord. So if you successfully pick a visible unit within 18 inches, roll 10 dice. This is nice. You're rolling 10 dice, but I think this doesn't work as well against large units. I think that you use this against a hero or a behemoth, a monster. That's where it's more. You can use it certainly against a large quantity unit. It's going to be that effective, yes. But I like deleting a hero off the table with this, diminishing the effectiveness of a monster. I love using it for those purposes. So for every 6 you get, it does a mortal wound, and then you roll again. Whatever's left, you roll again. Any 5s do a mortal wound, and then you keep going. Whatever's left of those is 4. There's going to be less and less dice each time. No rule of 1 applies here. This is not affected by the rule of 1. You're not recasting a spell, okay? You're not re-rolling hits or wounds. This is a spell effect that has been understood. You look at the verbiage. But what you're doing is you're rolling 10 dice. If you get any 6s, let's say you get 3 6s. Of those, you then roll them again. Any 5s you get, maybe you get 1 5. Then you're going to roll again. Hopefully you get a 4. Those are just residual. You can go all the way down to even a 1-up, but it's going to be very hard. It's only 10 dice. You keep going until the guy either runs out of wounds or you run out of dice. That's not a bad spell. It's easy to cast, and it can really put a hurt on one unit and its mortal wounds. So I like that he can cast 2 spells. He's got this lovely Curse of Years. He can throw a Mystic Shield or even chuck an Arcane Bolt if it's needed for more mortal wounds. I don't know if I'd go for the Arcane Bolt right away. I try to use that the Curse of Years. I don't know. Let's see, what's it range? It's an 18-inch range, which is not bad. He doesn't get his command ability because he's not going to be your general. Can't do that as an ally. But he's got an 18-inch range. That's fine. I'm happy with that. But I would use him for a second spell as a Mystic Shield. Throw that spell up on the Mourngul or on one of the other units to give it an extra ability to survive. And then for my and it's probably gonna be one of the can wraiths again. That's gonna be my general, and I'm gonna use Deathless Spirits as normal. That's standard. Then I'm also gonna have Cloaked in Shadow. So Cloaked in Shadow adds 1 to the general save rolls because I'm not concerned about the other stuff that I had. I just want to add. I want the general to be a little more survivable because I'm going to be using his artifact, Light of the Harvest Moon, and the Light of the Harvest Moon allows me to re-roll failed hit rolls within 6 inches. So this is the general that I may hold back, but maybe not. I have Arkan the Black sitting back in the distance, trying to buff up, maybe trying to throw out some Curse of Years onto the front lines. Maybe not jumping in right away. Bring him in later. Okay, he's another behemoth. If we run into a monster, rather, if we have the mission that you score with monsters, so it can support the Mourngul with that. Support the Mourngul with his Mystic Shield. But the general now can run up and be more of a frontline supporter. Throw an extra wound on him. Now he's got 5 wounds, and I like the idea that within 6 inches. That the Nighthaunt units will be able to reroll failed hit rolls. So I'm going to throw him up next to one of these Spirit Hosts, maybe the Hex Wraith, certainly near the Mourngul, because whatever wounds he's got, I want him to be able to reroll failed hits so that he can maximize his effectiveness. And that is the way that's going to that's my next list. This one's the least legal. So and my apologies for the I want to say this for anybody who can bring in for the second list. Where is it? Oh, I deleted it. Well, for good reason. For anybody who wants to bring in allies that can ally with Death Rattle, that's in wonderful combinations. Wonderful combination. White King with 40 skeletons. It's pretty sick. Unfortunately, we're not doing it for the Nighthaunt unit, Nighthaunt sub-faction. But there you go. Tell me what you think you'd put in there for the Nighthaunts. What would be your 400-point allies to supplement Nighthaunts, or even whatever the combination is? I look at it as, you could bring in Neferata. Now, Neferata is a little weird because she's, and that would be the other combination I would use. I'm going to say that Neferata right now because Neferata is, she's exceptional. She does incredible damage. That would be the alternate option since my Death Rattle one is out the window. It's going to eat up all 400 points. But why is that important? Let's pull that sheet up again. All right. Why would that work? Let's say I have this one down here. All right. She can still cast. Let's say I don't use any of this. All right. And I put in Neferata here. I don't know if that's spelled correctly. It doesn't matter. And she's 400 points, right? All right, I still got 140 points left. All right, I could probably put another Spirit Host. All right, so let's see. Maybe I throw in another Spirit Host here. All right. Right there, put in another Spirit Host for 120. All right, there, I'm 1980. Okay, I've got another unit of Spirit Host. That's going to be 6. No, it's going to be 3. Excuse me. 3 Spirit Hosts. Okay, wonderful. I could take that 120 somewhere else, but maybe I can use it 120 for summoning. She can cast multiple spells. She's not as effective in casting. She doesn't get the pluses that Arkan has, but she's a beast. All right, she can dish out tons of damage. She's much more offensive than Arkan. You're going to move her up into the front. You cannot use the reason why I'm hesitant to take her is because she can't use her command ability. Her command ability is provides that -1 within a large range. She can't do that because she's not in charge. You cannot have your allies be a general. So she's going to be there mainly because she has a spell called Twilight something or other, and it what it does is it makes her save unrendable, and it allows her. She already can fly, but it would give any unit the ability to fly. That's something that's pretty sweet in my opinion. You could put it on the Black Coach if you took it. All right, with an extra 220 points, I could bring in a Black Coach instead of another Spirit Host. All right, could do that. I don't know if I would, because I think I'd rather have the Spirit Host. Black Coach might be nice. You got a bunch. You got 3 Cairn Wraiths and a Tomb Banshee. That thing might get blasted up to its top level, and this spell could effectively make that Black Coach a unrendable beast and fly right off the bat. But I wouldn't do that, because why wouldn't you give it to her? Give it to her and make her save unrendable. She already can fly. She flies incredibly far. I think it boosts you up in your flight speed too. And put her on the rampage. Send her forward to attack. You don't get that -1 benefit, but maybe she sits by that Mongol and gets the benefit of the Mongol's -1 to be hit. So she gets an unrendable. She gets her own. She won't get a special save. She's not going to get a special save like the 6-up. But so what? It's not a very good save. And frankly, if they're going to target her, they're not targeting the rest of your army, which is going to start munching through your opponent. So this is another option. So there's a second legal list that you can take. You can't take Mannfred. He's over 400. What other things can you take? You could take a spread of Soulblight leaders if you really wanted to. I don't know if I would take necessarily the elite shock troops of Soulblight. It could be interesting. I'd want some bodies. But you could take a combination of that. You could take a Vampire Lord at 140 points, probably mounted, and a unit of 260, I think, for Blood Knights. That's 400. That's a nice option. It's not going to get you the extra bodies, but you could add that to this list. That'll get you 400 points. So maybe instead of Neferata, you're taking a Vamp Lord. All right, he's 140. And a unit of Blood Knights. I think they're 260. I'll get you your 1980. All right, and here's the beautiful thing about Red Wizard saying 1 Vamp Lord and 1 unit of Vargeist. You could do that too. Probably have a few points left over. Not a bad combination. Not a bad combination at all. You're not going to get the benefit of a 6-up special save, but who cares? The Vargeist move, man. They boogie. They're fast. And when they hit hard. They're not going to take the punishment as much, but they can definitely dish it out. So, yeah, that's certainly worthwhile. One thing to note about this 1980, somebody would probably say, oh, you're wasting 20 points. No, you're not. You're getting a triumph. Don't forget that. There's a completely viable to not spend all 2,000 points. Sometimes it's a game of chicken. I've seen that at tournaments. A game of chicken where you want to have that 1980, somebody's got a 1960. Because they're going to go, they want that free once per game rerolls, either hits, wounds, saves. One of those could matter. And yes, you could forget it, but I have a token that I put out there to make sure I don't. And I suggest you do too. But it's worthwhile. You can't always fit exactly 2,000 points. Sure, you can do it as reinforcement points. But why? Maybe the combinations don't go all the way up to what you have available. So if you have 10 or 20 points that are not going to fit with whatever combinations you have for your whatever units that you may want to summon in, with what you have. If you have 120 points, but there's 140 available, don't take 140. Take 120 as one of the options that for your reinforcement points. Save those extra 20 and get a triumph. All right, unless there's a specific unit you want that you want to summon in with those reinforcement points, why bother? Okay, so there's all your different options, guys. Thanks for the people in the chat who corrected my brain cramp. And apologies for probably a good 20 minutes of the show that we're now wasted. But hey, look, this is new. We're talking 2 weeks in, actually seeing this stuff, maybe an extra week or so for the things that were leaked. So we're still learning stuff. This is some of the Night Haunt stuff on early reflection. We're going to be learning a lot more of this. I'm looking to do a Free People's one this weekend. I'm waiting to get the lists from Paul Conte, who's a big Free People player, and he's always crunching lists and numbers. Guy's an accountant. He knows numbers. He's got a channel too. I'm looking to do that sometime before the end of the weekend, and I've got a bunch of them more lined up. I'm trying to do at least one of these a week. But if you got your requests, send them in. And if you've got ideas, send them in. If you have your list for Night Haunt, with allies or without, put them in the notes. That's what this whole thing about. It's about unlocking Age of Sigmar. We're trying to not just learn what the new meta is going to be, try to adapt to what the new scenarios are, but we're also trying to help spread that knowledge across the player base. New players coming in and veteran players who are learning the new lay of the land. So we're all doing that together. So again, thank you for the guys in the notes for in the chat for fact checking me. I appreciate that. I usually know my rules, and I usually know them pretty well, but hey, we all make mistakes. So I very much appreciate you guys for kicking in, especially you, iDuff. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of stuff you guys come up with. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody.